Congressman Mike McCaul is the chairman of the House's China Task Force and says that China and the World Health Organization broke international law during the coronavirus outbreak. Congressman tweeting, "The facts, the WHO, an entity meant to implement the international health rules, failed to follow its own guidelines and investigate evidence of human-to-human transmission presented to them by Taiwan. WHO blindly followed the CCP, delaying necessary action to protect people." McCaul also tweeted, "We must hold the CCP and the WHO Director General Tedros accountable to prevent another pandemic from China to reach our shores." Joining us is the chairman of the China Task Force, Texas Congressman Mike McCaul. Congressman, thank you for being here. Good to see you again.
Oh, you too. Thanks for having me.
Congressman, in a new ad out from Joe Biden, he claims that he would, if he were president, he would take on China. He would have people in China to investigate this. Here's my thing. How would he possibly do this? Is this realistic, number one? And number two, considering the fact that Democrats won't even join the committee in the task force that you're leading, how realistic is it that any Democrats want to get to the bottom of what China's doing or the WHO?
Right. And I think what Joe Biden's party has said by not joining the task force, and to give you some perspective, Sean, on this task force, Leader McCarthy and I were engaged in negotiations with the Democrats, with Steny Hoyer, a year ago to set up a bipartisan China task force. I think looking back is somewhat prescient. And after COVID-19, I think the need for this task force is even more, demanding. And unfortunately, I think it's very unfortunate that the Democrats chose not to join us in a bipartisan way. We think this issue is far too important to disregard in the Congress. And so we're moving forward with our task force with the open invitation of any Democrat who has expertise in this issue to join us in our effort. I think this is not a Republican or Democrat issue. It's an American foreign policy issue against one of the greatest long-term threats to the security of the United States. That's the Chinese Communist Party.
Congressman, how do you hold the World Health Organization accountable? Obviously, President Trump said he wants to withhold funding from them.
Well, I sent a letter to the President and Secretary of State Pompeo calling for his resignation. That there's no way we can reform the World Health Organization with a puppet of China in place of the WHO and at the helm. What happened is, I think, very egregious. When the doctors started first reporting the SARS-like virus, it should have been reported to the WHO under the new rules after SARS pandemic hit, many years ago. Within 24 hours, that was violated. And what was the response of the Chinese Communist Party? It was to arrest and detain and gag these doctors from telling the truth about the virus. Then the Chinese communists went into the laboratories, shut them down, destroyed lab samples. Fast forward into January, the human-to-human transmission the plot gets thicker when Taiwan warns the WHO. And then even the WHO expert in Wuhan warns the leadership in Geneva, the WHO, that this is human to human. This is in mid-January. Tedros decides to side with the Chinese Communist Party and not alert the world to this pandemic that was taking place. This is the number one mission and priority of the World Health Organization, is to warn and alert the world to a global pandemic, and they failed in that mission. If Tedros is in the private sector as a CEO, he would be fired on the spot.
Right. And I think that's absolutely right. We're out of time, but here's the question. Aside from holding funding, is there anything else we can do? That's, I think, the bottom line question.
Well, I think, our task force, we're going to be looking at, what are the consequences? What can we do to hold China accountable? I think there are many things we can be looking at, including sanctions of the very people that covered this up, that are responsible for the global pandemic. We can also look at divesting the thrift savings plan. Why does our federal retirement money sit and invest in Chinese owned companies that the PRC is in control of? I think the president's looking at tariffs. There are also avenues of what we did after 9/11, allowing the victims to file a lawsuit against the Chinese Communist Party. So these are all options the task force will be looking at and making recommendations on.
Congressman, thank you for joining us. Thanks for your leadership on this very, very important issue. We hope to have you back to get an update soon.
Thank you so much.
All right, here's a riddle for you. What's 1,800 pages and will cost $3 trillion? Well, that might be more of a joke than a riddle, but the answer is it's the latest stimulus package presented by Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats. Does it have a chance of passing? I hope not. Our company is going to weigh in next and give us their take.